It fit right in my pocket. I took it everywhere. Just place it on the window. The reception's better there. I ran my thumb across it till the station came in clear, and I'd sing right along to the sounds that I would hear.
Hey guys, what's going on? Hey, this is Vince Bugs, and I'm down here at the RAC Studio flying solo because Mike's got some stuff tonight he's working on. We got Daryl Mosley on tonight. Gonna kick a little bluegrass and talk about that little bit of country music and down home because I'm from Louisiana and I love a little bit of down home music. Daryl, how are you doing?
Vince, I'm good, buddy. How are you?
I'm doing great, man. How's the weather up there in Tennessee? Because it's hot down here in Florida.
Well, you know what we're doing in the 70s today, and it was kind of windy. And of course, for February, I'll take that. Absolutely.
That's right. You're not dealing with any ice storms like they do in Arkansas and everything else. So let me ask you, how long have you been playing music, man?
You know, I started, like a lot of people, grew up in church singing, started playing guitar about 13, and started singing as a summer job when I was in my teens. And so it's just kind of been a lifelong process for me.
All right. So it's like, is your family musicians, or is this just something that you took on as a hobby and just you migrated to it and it just became your go-to thing?
My mom, she sang and played guitar in church, and that was really it. But, she's the one that showed me the first 2 or 3 chords on the guitar and got me started playing. And, but it's funny, I live about 5 miles from Miss Loretta Lynn, and Miss Loretta.
Get out of here.
Yeah, it was great, but she had back then. Of course, it's still here, but it's a little different now. But back then, they had at the like a ranch, like a dude ranch, and all these people would come in and camp, and and so they had a little thing called a campfire show that they hired me to do when I was about 15 or 16. So every night I was doing a little concert for 75 or 100 people, and so it really got me started learning how to sing and entertain for people. And I'll never forget that very first night, man. I sang for an hour. I got paid. I got a girl's phone number. I thought, man, I'm never going to do anything else. This is it.
Hey, you're like, hey, I have arrived.
That's right. I have discovered my calling. That's right. That's it, man.
So, what we're like, so, I'm from Louisiana, and, everything from like bluegrass to blues to jazz to just contemporary R&B. And, and country music all blended, during the different times, because, Elvis was that pinnacle person that kind of blended that soul and that country together. So what were some of the influences that you had, in your life as you went through this and you decided you're going to play music? Who kind of influenced you?
Well, see, that's one of the great things about this part of the country is you're right. I mean, there's this mix of all these different styles, and I grew up. My dad loved country music, and so I grew up on that. My mom loved gospel music and singing in church, and of course, then I discovered Elvis early on, like a lot of people did, and but then there was the pop stuff that was on the radio when I was a teenager, and then I discovered Black gospel music like Sister Rosetta Tharpe and and the staple singers, and so there was this huge hybrid of musical styles that kind of developed in me, and I still listen to lots of different things, but it all just kind of came together.
Well, I figured you were like back then you're in high school, you were all in about Def Leppard.
Not really. That's what's funny is that, I mean, in high school, I sang in some of the little garage bands, and we were doing Styx and Loverboy and that kind of stuff. But secretly, I was listening to Don Williams and Conway Twitty. It was just whatever. So.
A lot of people don't give Johnny Cash a lot of credit on a lot of things. He had so much good influences on so many different artists, even, soul artists. And, you look at Johnny Cash, you look at Otis Redding, you look at honestly, I tell people the best music was like at that mid 60s going right into that early 70s. The music is just so vibrant and good, and I think what made you, so the question I would really love to ask is what really made you want to be a professional musician?
It was just that, I think initially for me, that love of singing in front of a live audience. I mean, I've done a lot of recording and that sort of thing since then, but recording has never fed me the way that performing live does. And especially now as a songwriter, there's really nothing that compares to writing, creating a song and singing it for people and seeing them get it, or having them come and tell stories about how, that's you were singing my life story and that sort of thing. Realizing that a part of something you've created has found its way into the fabric of their life. That to me, that's what it's all about.
Man, listen, man, we've all had heartbreak and we've all, just had love. And I'm gonna tell you, music just makes things a lot better after a heartbreak, or when you're falling in love. Just music just seems to soothe the soul. So, with that being said, what song are you gonna sing to soothe the soul tonight to start us off?
Well, I'll tell you what, I'll sing you one that was actually a number one song for us last year. I mentioned some of my musical influences. I grew up as a child in the 70s, way back before, the internet and cable and all this kind of stuff. And so music was, outside of just the local television station or what you might run across on, on your local radio, it was harder to find. And so when I was a kid, my grandfather gave me this little transistor radio, and it was through that transistor radio that I discovered WLS out of Chicago and Red Hot and Blue out of Memphis, and and some of these other programs and music and musical styles that I might have never heard otherwise. And so Rick Lang and I wrote a song about it, and it was a number one song last year. So I'll share it with you.
Congratulations.
It fit right in my pocket. I took it everywhere. Just place it on the window. The reception's better there. I ran my thumb across it till the station came in clear. Then I'd sing right along to the sounds that I would hear. Well, I couldn't see their faces, but I sure knew the tunes. I'd sing out loud and play pretend guitar on Mama's broom. It drew me like a lighthouse with its tiny amber glow, the best friend of my childhood, my transistor radio. From the Opry down in Nashville to the Ozark Jubilee to the new sounds out of Motown, it all sounded good to me. Well, I sang along with Elvis, played with Bill Monroe on the stage in my bedroom and my transistor radio. Well, I learned to hear the harmony in church and Sunday school, but I practiced with Aretha when she belted Chain of Fools. And early in the morning, if I tuned it in just right, I could hear that banjo picking, making right with Martha White. Well, it's been so many years since those magic boyhood nights. Today I get my music beaming down from satellite. But it never quite feels like it did in those days long ago, when I heard it through the grapevine on that little radio. From the Opry down in Nashville to the Ozark Jubilee to the new sounds out of Motown, it all sounded good to me. Well, I sang along with Elvis, played with Bill Monroe on the stage in my bedroom and my transistor radio. I sang along with Elvis, played with Bill Monroe on the stage in my bedroom and my transistor radio.
I'm right there with you because I had a transistor radio myself. Because I'm right there in about the same age you are, so I definitely know. Hey, it was good times, man. Wow, that brings back so many memories of everything in my life, and the things that we all shared. Life was simple, man. It's a
Yeah,
lot more complicated.
now entertainment is everywhere. I was laughing the other day. You can't pump gas now without watching television on the gas pump. There's entertainment everywhere now. We had to work a lot harder at discovering, music and that sort of thing. And, so, and of course, quality of that little radio was terrible, but man, it was just the best thing in the world because it was really for people in our generation. It was our only window into those other areas. So.
All right, so let me ask you: have you traveled overseas and played in Europe yet?
I'm not. I mean, I've been, of course, in Canada, Mexico, and all through the continental U.S., but I've been in 49 of the 50 states. We've talked about doing a European tour, and I would love to do one. We've just not put it together yet.
Oh man, I need to link you up with Thomas Cavanaugh. He was just on our show, and he sings country, but he also sings contemporary. And he just took a couple country singers from Nashville over with him, and they're singing in England right now with him on a tour. He's going to have this later this year, and they just all became friends off meeting on this show.
Oh man, that'd be great. I would love to do that. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and he's killing it right now. But he's just like you know. He hadn't come to the States, so the first time we interviewed him, he came to Nashville, and he was just like, wow. And so, yeah, man, your voice. Because I grew up in Europe, so I will tell you straight up: if you go to UK, Ireland, Scotland, and definitely Germany, oh, you're going to be a hit. You're going to be a hit because they love country music. They just love contemporary good blues, everything.
Well, I appreciate that. I know that. One of my biggest musical influences growing up was Don Williams, and Don was huge in Europe and Scotland and that area, and so a lot of my songs are reminiscent of things that he would have done, just because I listened to so much of that. So, yeah, I've always said I'd love to go over there and do some of those venues, just to experience that.
Yeah, and the food.
And the food. There you go.
And the food. You gotta get the food. So, man, what is your so the guitar is what you started? Do you play any other instruments?
I played bass for years and some other bands. I played bass on the Opry for about 10 years and bass, I'm probably a better bass player. Guitar was what I started with, and of course as a songwriter, so I write most of the stuff on guitar. So I've learned because I play so much. I do about 140 concerts a year, so my guitar chops are, continue to improve. But bass is probably the best instrument as far as something that I play.
Okay, yeah, my brother last February won a Grammy with Maverick City because he sings for Maverick City, and
Oh wow.
and I did not realize what you guys, because he was a sofa sleeper until boom they hit it big, but I did not realize the grind, because we used to tease him all the time, are you ever gonna have a real job? And then they hit it big and won his Grammy and a Billboard, and I realized, man, the amount of work that he put in writing. So how much writing do you actually do yourself or co-write with other artists?
You know what? I always like to say that I try to always be in the frame of mind, and I always try to be thinking like a writer. There are times, like, so with Rick Lane, that I write a lot with. Rick lives in New Hampshire, so we're good online and we write together. And Rick's very regimented. He likes to write. He likes to have a schedule, and so that kind of pushes me, which is a good thing. The rest of the time, it's more of me looking for a story that I want to tell, and then finding a way to write that. If I'm preparing for an album, I'm a lot more focused, and I'll write a lot more. I'm not. I don't. I have had a lot of things recorded by other artists, but I don't write a lot for that purpose. It's me. It's really just more about trying to find a story that I want to tell and telling it.
All right, so let me ask you, you just brought up a great point. So how do artists, like, they want you to write something? So when you write something, do you ever go like, this isn't for me, this could be great for this person? Or do you just write some stuff and you probably just sitting around on the bus and you scribble out something and you go, this is a good song, but it's good for somebody else. Do you ever have those thoughts?
Oh yeah, no doubt. I mean, I think you have to separate if you're a writer and an artist, you kind of have to separate yourself and then to know where the line draws. And there's some things that I have written that I think is a good song, but it's not for me as an artist. And so I may send it over to a friend of mine that I think was a better fit, and say, this might be something you guys would be interested in, because I know it's something that I'll probably personally never record. There's other things that I've written, and I know instantly that I would never show this to anybody else because I know this one's for me.
Okay, got you. And you don't think you guys just blow my mind with the ability to understand the chord of what goes where it's on. Every time I hear somebody sing a song, I don't know how they know where to put the or to put the ooh, and it's just like, how did they even know to put that in the song? So, like even when you're singing the song Transistor Radio, it's just like you knew where like to put this certain tone or a certain and emphasis on certain words. So is it just an art, or is it just something that comes naturally after writing and singing so long?
I think it's a little of both. I think part of it is just a natural instinct. And then I think you learn as you go along. I've always described it to people. It's kind of like if you're playing catch with somebody, how does your hand know where to go to catch that ball? You know, there's just a part of you that knows where that ball's going to be, and that's where you go. And I think the music stuff is very much the same way. You can learn to get better at it. You know, just because you can catch a ball doesn't mean that the Yankees are going to sign you, but the really good ones reach that level. And I think music is the same way. I think there's an instinct that kicks in, but there's also a learning process, and you can continue to grow and get better at it.
Oh yeah, I love that. I love that. So with that being said, where are you gonna take us next?
Well, I'll play you the new single. This came from a
Exclusive.
conversation that Rick and I had about a meme that I saw online, and it said something to the effect of, you know, if you get advice from some old man who's cutting up an apple with his pocket knife and eating the slices off the blade, you should probably take that advice. And he and we laughed about that and started talking about the older men in our lives and some of the things they've told us. And if we had listened, maybe they would have saved us some grief. And I said, well, that's a story that I want to tell.
True
And
statement.
so, no doubt, and so that became like I said, that was the story I wanted to tell. So it's the new single that's out right now. So I'll share it with you. He was peeling an apple, sitting in the shade, eating those green slices right off the blade. Grandpa was what you might say a quiet man, but there was so much wisdom neath that farmer's tan. I said, I wanna be just like you when I'm grown. He handed me an apple, said, this is all I know. Choose the road less traveled every time you can. Try to find the good things in your fellow man. Never hesitate to stand up for the weak, and the bigger man's the one who turns the other cheek. If you can say I'm sorry and learn how to forgive, well then you've had a life well lived. Wealth is not determined by what you possess. You know a dollar bill won't buy you happiness. Take time to show others just how much you care, 'cause love is something you have plenty of to share. No one else can tell you what your life is worth. Just thank God for the blessings of each day upon the earth, and choose the road less traveled every time you can. Try to find the good things in your fellow man. Never hesitate to stand up for the weak, and the bigger man's the one who turns the other cheek. If you can say I'm sorry and learn how to forgive, well then you've had a life well lived. If you can make each moment count and give more than you get, then you can turn the page with no regret. Choose the road less traveled every time you can. Try to find the good things in your fellow man. Never hesitate to stand up for the weak, and the bigger man's the one who turns the other cheek. If you can say I'm sorry and learn how to forgive, well then you've had a life well lived. Then you've had a life well lived.
Exclusive. That was on point. I love it. So listen, if you weren't a musician, what other profession would you have?
If I couldn't play or something, if I woke up tomorrow and I couldn't play anymore, I would probably coach baseball.
I love it. So what
I
position
would have.
did you play back in the day?
I was a little guy. I was never the power hitter I wanted to be. I was a little second baseman guy that batted first or second in the order, and but I was never a great player. But man, I loved it, and I coached a long time, as best I could while I was playing. I can't anymore because I tour too much. But my oldest son, he's now a high school baseball coach, and so I get to go and live a little bit vicariously through him. And you know, I just think
Yeah,
baseball is the
sit
perfect
down.
sport.
Uh,
Baseball
uh,
is the sport where you can teach young men about life and use baseball as a metaphor. And that's
oh,
kind of what I did.
yeah, you're spot on, man. I coach a varsity football, running back, and recruiting coach, and help with quarterbacks now and then. And I definitely know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Trying to reshape young people's lives. And I'm telling them that the challenges in the world are as many. But you know what I would say? Choices have consequences, and sometimes let's try to make better choices.
Yeah. Well, that's the
So
great thing about youth sports is if you've got the right leader, is that they can learn things like responsibility and teamwork and sacrifice and and things that are going to transcend that the playing field. And they don't get it at the time. They realize that later. And to me, and I know you know this, that's the greatest compliment is a former player will come back and say, you helped me get it. And
yeah,
that's
oh
to me,
yeah.
that's what it's all about.
Yeah, and I've met a lot of young men who don't have a father figure, and people don't,
Yeah.
they say that's not very important. I'm going to disagree with that statement on a regular basis because at some point you need to have someone to kind of guide you left or right, so you can stay centered. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man. Yeah, my
That's
son is coaching in a kind of an inner city school, and a lot of these guys have come in, from difficult family situations, and so they kind of come in with a swagger and trying to show who's the cock of the walk, and a lot of that comes from this deep seated insecurity, and as soon as they discover that you care about them as a person, not as a player, but as a person, it changes everything. And I mean, I've seen these kids' whole life change because of that.
yeah, and it touches your heart. I mean, you,
Oh,
you,
no
you get
doubt.
it. It touches your heart.
Yeah,
So let me
that
ask you, what is your greatest? Yeah. So what's your greatest achievement as a musician so far?
I'd say the fact that I've been able to make a living at it. I mean, really, I mean, I get a chance to travel, and not many people can say that the dreams that they have when they were kids, they've been able to realize most of those, and I have. And anytime I get a chance to play the Opry or play the Bluebird or some of these places, I try to just soak in the moment and realize that I'm one of the blessed ones, and I'm nowhere near the most talented person I know, but the good Lord has given me opportunities sometimes that I don't really understand, but I'm very grateful for.
Hey, and kindness pays off. I don't care what anybody says. Yeah. So where are you going to be touring next? What do you got in the hopper right now that's going to be hot coming up here?
Well, with me, it's kind of it's a steady tour. I never really come off the road much. I mean, I'll usually in for 2 or 3 days and back out. I've got North Carolina coming up and Texas coming up, and then it picks up a lot more in the summer. I go back to Pennsylvania. Usually every year I'll make a run through New York, Connecticut, Rhode Island, and so that sort of thing. It's and new dates come in all the time. And one fun thing that I've got coming up, the very first band that I ever played on the road with professionally was a bluegrass band called New Tradition, and we were all through the '90s. We did about 200 dates a year, but we ended up kind of going our separate ways around at 98, 99. But I've stayed close. We're still friends with all the guys. And anyway, long story short, we are doing a reunion concert. First time we've been on stage together in 25 years. And so in
Wow.
Texas in May, we're actually going to perform together. So we are so stoked about that.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell you, people at social media and the internet has its drawbacks, but I will tell you, for a lot of people, it's also brought some friendships that would have been long lost because of Pony Express. So since we had the internet, it's helped a lot of people find folks. And because you always wonder, like even sometimes I wonder, where did this guy go years later,
Right.
or what happened to one of my good friends, And I just lost one good friend from high school, but it's so good to be able to say, okay, I see what's happening, because we realize we're aging. You know what I mean?
Oh, that's been one of the great things with social media, like things like, like like crowdfunding. I'll see a classmate that has lost a family member, and they're struggling financially to pay for a funeral or whatever, and in just a matter of minutes, those funds are raised, and they're raised by maybe people that you haven't seen in years, but people that you connected with at some time in the past that still has a fondness for you, and it builds bridges in ways that nothing else could. And that's, to me, that's been the best part of social media.
No, you're absolutely right. It's all about, I'm a firm believer. I try not to go too gospel on my show, but I tell people all the time, my faith in God has probably blessed me threefold. And, looking out for my fellow man, I realize that some people aren't, going to be kind, but I'm going to do my best to be kind until the day I go, man, just because it's just, I've been blessed by so many other things. So Daryl, you're on point on that. So before we get here, get to your last song, I want to ask you, if you had to give any advice to your younger self and what you know now, what would you tell your younger self?
Um, don't compare yourself to anybody else. I mean, that's really it. I mean, because, and I think that's probably more true now than ever, because as we talked about in social media, we all tend to have this public face that we put in, and that maybe not is exactly realistic, and it's real easy now, I think, to kind of compare yourself to the public face of other people, and but I believe that we all have we are all different. We each have gifts, talents, skills, abilities, personalities that are unique, and our path is different from everybody else's path. And I think life is really about learning who you are and what you have to offer and what you can bring into the lives of other people. And if you can stay focused on that, then all the other stuff it'll still come back around. It'll all come back to you.
All right, that's great advice, Harry. You heard that, guys. You heard Daryl tell you, man. Don't compare yourself to other people. Always stay focused and true to who you are. And with that being said, Daryl's gonna take us home. And what you gonna drop, Daryl? Because let's take it home.
There's a gentleman that used to live in my town. He's passed away now. John L. Mays was his name, Mr. John. Some people called him, or John L. John was a black man who was severely autistic. But Mr. John got up every morning and walked. And he would go to the nursing home and visit with everybody. He would walk to the hospital and visit with everybody. He would go to the funerals of every funeral we had in town. And when he finally passed away, of course, it was the biggest funeral we'd never really ever had here. He's kind of a local folk hero. And but before they left the funeral home to take him to the cemetery, they drove his route, and which I thought was appropriate. But on his tombstone, there's a carved picture of him, and at the top it says "Walking Man." And
Wow.
and, because for people who didn't know his name, that's kind of how he was known. And I wanted to honor him in a song and some other walking men. And so this will be on the new album. The new album comes out later this year, but this will be on the new album. You could find him every morning on the sidewalks of our town. Rain or shine, it didn't matter. Mr. John would make his rounds. He'd be visiting the shut-ins and the county nursing home. Attended every funeral, paid respects to those gone on. One foot and then the other, step by step he stayed the course, thinking only about others, listening to the master's voice, moving with a purpose, faithful to the plan, and focused on the mighty task at hand. He was a walking man. From Atlanta down to Selma and the streets of Montgomery, he would walk demanding that all men be treated equally. They gathered like a storm cloud and rained down on D.C., brought change to a nation with a walking preacher's dream. One foot and then the other, step by step he stayed the course, thinking only about others, listening to the master's voice, moving with a purpose, faithful to the plan, and focused on the mighty task at hand. He was a walking man. Well, there are those who'll take a side,
Some who'll take a stand, but few will take the steps required to help their fellow man. We're a world in need of more like Mr. John and Dr. King, and the one who took that long walk up a hill called Calvary. First one foot and then the other. Step by step he stayed the course, thinking only about others, listening to the master's voice, moving with a purpose, faithful to the plan, and focused on the mighty task at hand. He was a walking man. He was a walking man.
Daryl Mosley. Woo! Hey, that was beautiful. And I love the punch with Martin Luther King and just the simple fact of, simple kindness, man. That is just amazing how you put that together. Daryl, I appreciate you coming on the show tonight. It's been a blast, man. And it's been a pleasure having you out here. And stay blessed, man. Hope to have you back on when you're already blown up. So, I appreciate you talking to the little people tonight.
Oh, there's no little people, man. There's just people. So, Vince, it's been a joy. I appreciate it.
All right. Hey, you have a blessed day, man. And thank you. And I'll see you around on the rodeo, man.
Look forward to it. See you, buddy.
Keep it rolling, man. Bye.
And by my good friend Charlie Smith of Mind Art Visual. Check him out, he does incredible videos. And these are like...
Before I touch on talking about diet, talk about modeling and all these different things, me and Mike G want to give a shit.
The journey to get there was pretty hilarious on my side, I thought, anyway. Having been a